What's up everybody? Welcome to the first Make Anything series here on the channel. In this one, we're gonna design and make the biggest one-man desk in upstate New York. So, run the intro. As some of you guys know, a couple of months ago, I got evicted from my office. The wife decided that was going to become a nursery. Now, I have no problem making a new office, but I decided I want a new desk. My old desk, I had bought it like an Office Max, and I had like a mahogany, lawyer type relaxing outfit to it. But my new office is all about productivity and efficiency, and I needed a desk that had multiple workstation areas for me to work on, and well, I decided I was gonna make my own. In this video, I'm gonna show you how I modeled it up in Fusion. All the different files are below in the description area, and then I'll take you through the process of making in the end. Enjoy! So I kind of had modeled up the three walls with kind of like the outer wall not being visible here. And started out by creating a new component that I'm gonna right click that one to be the desk or the table here. This is where our file is gonna contain within it. Now I'm gonna create an offset plane here from the bottom, and I measured my old desk, but was 29.5 inches from the bottom to the top. And I like that height, and I thought I'll just keep it the same. So opening up a sketch on that, and really just using some rectangles here to start drawing up what end up with being the desk shape. Now I'm going big. I decided that, you know, go big, and then if it's too big, you can always cut off it. So I made it 140 inches long, and I made it 3 feet deep. Now most desks, when you're buying desks, are very narrow because, well, office space is kind of like limited, but I wanted a deep desk. I wanted a desk where I could have a computer and actually have some things behind it. So made it 3 feet, like I said, decided that, you know, maybe I would just cut off if it got too crazy. Now I had on my old desk kind of like a corner in 45 degrees that I wanted to maintain. So I created one of that in this desk here. And I kind of wanted multiple workspaces, like I said earlier. So I didn't know if I always wanted to be sitting in the corner working on a computer. So I took these kind of like layout here, these two rectangles and a kind of 45, and I extruded it 0.75, so 3/4 length. Now I looked at some YouTube videos, and YouTube videos kind of like, I was resembling countertops layouts, and there you will use something like MDF boards, and you put two together, where the bottom one is kind of like more like a skeleton to hold it up. So I was gonna copy that for this. So I'm gonna open up another sketch here and just draw two horizontal lines across here, because of course I can't make this huge desk out of this one big piece. Using some relationships here to kind of like full define the sketch. And then one of my favorite commands that if you're watching the live streams you've seen, I am going to split body. So I'm splitting the body here to create the two, or actually the three kind of sections on here. Now, so now I have 3 bodies in here, and you will actually see in this case here, I'm working with a lot of bodies in the beginning. Now, these 3 bodies here is kind of like resembling the top layer of the desk. So like I said before, the bottom of it is going to also be a 3/4 MDF, but it's going to be kind of like more like a skeleton, I guess, you know, hold things up here. Now, over here in the United States, 8 feet is kind of like the normal length of MDF board. So 8 feet is 96 inches. So that is kind of like the length here. So you can, and I kind of like that because you can now see as I'm sketching up these couple of different components here, that they will kind of like, the 2 legs will go under the second body that is kind of like in an angle here. You'll also see that I'm using another technique that I'll be using through here as I'm modeling things up, where I am trying to sketch things up and only use one dimensions to drive components that kind of like have the same dimension. So in this case here, you will see that I'm going to place a dimension. It's going to be 6, and I'm going to do a length between these components here. It's going to be 24. Then when I'm dimensioning the next ones, instead of typing it in, I click on the previous dimension, and now Fusion is smart enough to know that that is driven from the previous dimension. So I knew I was going to be using 6 and 24 throughout this design. So in this case here, I only have to change 1 6, the first 6 I inputted, and then everything else the other ones will follow that, because I knew that was all going to be kind of like the same. So then I'm actually going to just completely repeat the same process on the other end. So again, I'm going to go with the 8 inches wide, and again you will see that when I placed the dimension, I kind of like clicked on the bottom one. I actually later on I thought about it and I clicked on the closest one. You can do that. You don't have to click on the original one. So again, I'm sketching these same kind of like rectangles. Now you could also have used constraints for this. You could have used the equal constraints would have been just as well. Your drawing wouldn't be so cluttered. But you'll see here my OCD that I actually do go in and kind of like trying to make it more organized. Now I kind of like work my way down the concept of bodies. So I just kind of like decided to continue to stay with bodies. So what you will see here, I use the press pull, so press Q, I do the 75, and then I go over in the dialog box, and you see I'll do it numerous times, changing join to new body. So over to the left, you will see that I'm just literally creating body upon body upon body. Now at this point, I kind of like realized that I kind of like had to do some better support underneath with the skeleton. So what I decided to do was to create, and I'm just gonna rough sketch it up. You know, I do this all the time if you ever follow kind of like the live streams. So I kind of like just sketched up here a piece that is going to be a support for that underneath that 45, and then I'm just using the relations to go ahead and kind of like make them equal, parallel, and I made it 8 inches wide here. And then I extruded this piece down as a new body. So what I end up with here is I end up with actually a extra body that kind of like crosses over that one piece on the left. So with that, I'm gonna go in and use the combine feature that is inside of Fusion, but I'm gonna change it to a cut. So I go in and selected that piece that is kind of like been overlapped with the piece I just created, and I'm gonna say keep the tool, and now it kind of like cut with that piece. So that is pretty awesome. You can do that. Now when I did that, I realized that I had kind of like that one piece that is laying right on the edge of my seam, and I realized that I probably should have the skeleton kind of like overlapping the seam. So I go in here and I use the move copy tool, and I selected the body and I just dragged it down 4 inches. That was what I knew. That was kind of like that it would be in the center of the seam. And then I just used the same feature again to shorten that piece up to the right, shorten it up to the right piece with that previous piece I created. Now that left 2 of my 6 inch pieces too short. So press pull will do multiple things, right? So hit Q and select those 2 faces, and it will extend those faces by typing in 4, and now those were in the right length. This was really kind of like the layout of the desk. I decided also at this point that I was going to draw up kind of like some mounts on the side where it was going to kind of like rest against the wall. But these pieces was just some pieces of, I don't know, 3x4s that you screw in the wall, and then you know, it's kind of like resting on. And I knew that for legs, I knew that I wanted to use these plumber pipes here. You can see here that you screw together, and I knew that I might have some height issues with those, and I was also just gonna shim those up. So here you can see how I'm drawing up one of the kind of like pieces that is going to rest on against the wall. Just screw those into the wall, and then I'm using the copy tool just to copy the next one over. But at this point here, most of my layout in Fusion is pretty much over. At this point, I'm really just kind of like thinking that, you know, I kind of like got the desk laid out, how I'm gonna mount it, and the legs I am not really too worried about. Now this desk, this model I'm using right now, is actually a model of my whole office and also of my shop area. So when I'm done with the desk here, I decided that it was time to actually save it out in its own file. So all I did was going up and select a save as, a save copy as, and that will save it as an individual file, and that's the file that you will find down in the description area of this video. Now when I've done that, I open up that file, and again, just remember it's all bodies, but now I actually do want to create it into components, because I wanted to create some drawings, wanted to lay it out, and you know, I was thinking about maybe making a cut list that I actually never created. But all I did was open up the body and shift select them all, right click and create components, and now it's all components. So that's what you will find in that. Now from that point on, I created another file, because now I kind of like felt like the design, I kind of like decided on this desk, and it was time to kind of like break. You know, I wasn't really going to make any changes as I was going along. I felt pretty comfortable with it. So I created a new file where you will see that I sketched up the layout, because I had to go to Home Depot and get the material. So I sketched out 4x8 a sheet of MDF. You can kind of like see how I kind of like gave it that appearance. So it looked about right. So you will see here that this is 96 by 48 inches. And I just create copies of that. So I thought, all right, you know, I buy 3 pieces. When I created those 3 pieces, I was just going to kind of like start breaking things up. So I actually knew that 2 of them I would have to get saw cut, and I was going to let Home Depot do that for the 3 inches wide. So I just moved that cut body function that we used earlier to cut those pieces, and I moved them out a little bit to the side so I could just kind of like picture how it would look like. And then I knew that the last piece all the way to the left was going to be kind of like the smaller pieces. So I just decided already that I hadn't even tested this out, that I would just get that cut in half. So 2 pieces of FDF would be the 3 inch or the 3 feet deep, and then the last piece would just be cut all the way along, so I can kind of like transport it later. And that was when I realized that weight might also become my worst enemy as I was going through this issue. So now I brought in the part file from before, our kind of like layout, and then I really just used the move copy tool to kind of like just lay out each individual piece as I thought that they would fit on these different boards. And you know, as you can see here, it worked out pretty well. Honestly, I laid all this out after I come home with the boards, so I was kind of happy that it actually laid out like that. Now the other thing that I then did after I laid this out was I brought it into the 2D drawing environment in Fusion, and then made some dimensions on it so I could print it out and bring it with me when I actually made it. So now it's time to make it. All right, so now actually time to actually make the thing, right? Because it always looks great on the computer. So I started marking it up here using our drawings and try to count how many times I actually erase lines, as you will see through the clips here. Another thing I had to do was kind of like creating some angles. They worked out pretty well, just kind of like taking your time to lay it out. Like I said earlier, weight started to become a little bit of an issue just because I didn't have anybody to help me. You know, I hadn't really thought about that, especially when you start adding the skeleton to it, as you will see later. Now I had to use my circular saw to cut the ends of the 3 feet wide ones, and I know you can get a track for that, but my local Home Depot didn't have one, so I just thought I would use like a drywall square and my trusted canvas clamp. Another thing I did have to do, rip some of the pieces, and I had this saw that I got from my father-in-law probably a couple of years, and it was not until recently I actually realized that you can rip on it. Now, of course, I didn't have the thing balanced. I had bought like some roller support, from Home Depot. It was a little bit of a mess, maybe a little bit dangerous, as you will see here on the second piece here. When I get that through, well, then suddenly the piece kind of like kinked. Yeah, be careful. Another thing that's pretty cool about this saw is that it actually can do different angles. So I was able to cut the 45s on that, as you will see here in a second. I can also cut straight. So I cut all the different pieces up, and then I started to kind of like lay them out. And now I actually have Fusion open here on my laptop, because this actually became a little confusing for me, as you will see, scratching my head, because everything is upside down and just making sure you get the right pieces. Now there was a couple of pieces that still had to be adjusted, like that angle emitter piece there, and I just did that with the circular saw, kind of like laid that out. Worked out pretty well. I also knew that certain fits was not going to be, on this skeleton, was not going to be perfect, because I had never taken into consideration the width of the blade, but I thought, that probably works out pretty good. So I went ahead and got some glue, and I bought a nail gun. I'm not sure what it's called. It's not really nails. I bought that one on Home Depot. Just watch out. You think you get a good deal, and then you realize that it doesn't come with a battery. You have to buy that separate, and it's just as much as the dang nail gun is. But it worked really well. So just glued it and nailed everything in place. Kind of like just got it all laid out, and then I glued each kind of like piece individually and nailed it in, and it was went pretty smooth. Now I think this is the next morning. I come out and I started sanding the edges, because there was a little bit of kind of like mismatch between it. I got around it, and I decided that was kind of silly. I had a router that I had also bought to kind of like help me with this project, so I just used that one to kind of like going around, and that kind of like smoothed it very well. Now here you will see the laminate that I was going to use. I have never done anything like this before, so I was kind of like a little, this is an experiment. They're about $40 a sheet at Home Depot, and I bought 2 of them, hoping that they were enough, what it turned out to be. Now I had to kind of like trim it, and I've seen different ways you could do it when I looked on YouTube. I decided to go with a really sharp X-Acto knife, just kind of like trying to cut it down, but kind of like had a little bit of the same experience as I have when I'm cutting drywall. I always lose focus for a second, and then it ends up kind of like I make a wavy cut, but it worked out. I just made it kind of like a little bit bigger. Here you can see it kind of like lay out some of the side pieces here too. That's gonna go on the side. One of the things I'd seen on YouTube was they recommend that you do the sides first and then the top, because whenever you wipe with a wet cloth, you don't want it to be the other way around, so water can sneak into kind of like the overlay. So always the sides first, and then the bottom. Here you just see me with my other saw. I'm kind of like cutting some pieces that's going to be, you will see these laying on the top of the table in a little bit, so they're laying there. They were just I was just using them to kind of like separate when I was gluing all this up. Now gluing all this was actually what I feared the most, but it actually turned out to be somewhat the easiest. I had bought 2 different kinds of glue. One that comes like in a paint can, thick glue and one that was a spray on. And I decided to use kind of like the paint one, or the thick one for the sides. So I gave it 2 coats. I just used a paintbrush. The paintbrush is now garbage, I knew that. But I just gave it like 2 layers, and you gotta paint or put glue on both. You gotta put glue on both sides. So a layer on the sides here of the table, and then put it on the end pieces. And you just gotta wait like 5-10 minutes. They get a little tacky, and then you just kind of like roll them on. Now you make them a little bit bigger, so you can trim it off with the router here. So here you can kind of like see putting it on. And this was extremely easy. Like I said, I feared this a lot when I started out with this, but it's actually fairly easy. And one of the big pieces I actually laid on and put it on crooked. I was actually able to kind of like pull it back off and put it back on again. And after thinking about it, I just, I guess that there's not really, not much that needs to hold it down. Now, here comes the router into place, where you're gonna route around the edges to kind of like make them fit. And counterclockwise do one thing, and clockwise does another. And I know all of what it does on a CNC mill, but I couldn't really remember in the heat of the moment what was going where, so I just probably running the wrong way, and it actually ended up, I did chip a couple of the corners of this, so definitely make sure you got that in the right way. Then I just took a file and I just kind of like smoothed it out, and it became pretty dang smooth. Now, for the big pieces that was going to go on top, I decided to use the spray can glue. So I put tape around the edge, just because I didn't really know how much glue was going to be running over. So here you will see that I'm kind of like just spray painting, but putting the glue on over here in the background. I had like some totes that I put it on, and then I sprayed on the table itself. And then I took these pins that I cut and kind of like laid the sheet on top of it, so I can kind of like work with it before I started removing each one individually and just kind of like glue it down. Now here you can see that I'm taking one off and I put it back on again because I didn't get it on right. But then it was actually pretty smooth sailing to get that on. So that actually finished one side of it, and I was pretty happy with that. And I put some cardboard on it because now, like I said, I realized that this had gotten pretty dang heavy at this point for me to lift around. So I put some cardboard to kind of like support it. And then it was on to the second piece, where I kind of like, again, followed the same principle. I actually started to rip some of the laminate on the saw again, and that actually worked very well. Following the same procedure as the first one, just kind of like get it all laid on, spray it on. I had the garage door open. It starts smelling a little bit bad, and trimming it all down. And then I went up, and like I show you here, that I kind of like laid out the different pieces of wood. You can see that right there. It was just heavy, but I was just determined to do it. And you'll like to see there's a little bit of a, I broke a little piece in this area right here. That was actually from lifting it up the stairs by myself. I should have asked for help, but who knows. So there I went around and I got that all set up, put it together. Here you will see I have the legs that I bought. So this is a 1-inch pipe, plumber's pipe that I bought and put in there, and got that all adjusted and made level. And it actually went pretty well putting it into together. Now you'll see here that I kind of like used some different, next day, used some different pieces to kind of like support it underneath that, but you won't really see that in the end, those pieces of wood. I also ended up placing 2 in the further back here, because one of the things I suddenly realized was that with this big desk, I had to walk around on it. So I added a couple extra support legs in the back, and I have actually been crawling around on this desk. Maybe not standing right on the 45-degree seams, but anywhere else you can definitely climb around on it. So there you have it. This was the first Make It Anything video. You let me know down in the comment area if you like this kind of stuff or if this was kind of like just a waste of your time. Don't forget, the files that I used inside of Fusion are down in the description area of the video. So you can definitely take those, download those, take a look at them, let me know what you think. Until the next time, have an awesome day.